Walker Kessler, is he on the trade market or not? And what should teams be willing to give up to get the Jazz big man? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. So important that you turn those on so you get notified when we drop a new video. Joining me is Donnie Freeman, a.k.a. D-Free. Donnie, Walker Kessler. Just make up your mind, Utah. We need to know, is he on the market or not?
Yeah, it's just really interesting that he is. I actually never thought that he should have been in the first place on the market, but then he is, and he's off, and now he may be back on. It's kind of weird. It's you could definitely spiral this into a relationship analogy, but I'm not, so I can't do it. I can't personally do it, but you know,
it's complicated. If you remember the old school Facebook, relationship status updates. All right, so here's what Jake Fisher has on the fantastic Substack that he shares with Mark Stein, the Steinline. He said, another hard-to-read big man situation. Jazz center Walker Kessler has generated plenty of interest, and he's a notable Lakers target. Word is Utah has turned down multiple overtures for the former first-round selection. So teams are interested in Walker Kessler, and rightfully so. There were rumors over the summer that he was available. But now Jake Fisher, despite there was some rumors about a week or so ago, maybe a little bit less, it's all blurring together at this point, but that he was off the market. Now Jake Fisher is characterizing this as just hard to read and that the Jazz have turned down offers. But might that just mean that the Jazz haven't seen an offer that they like at this point?
Yeah, I do think that is probably more so the case. This could be one of those situations where they're trying to just send out different things and just try to get people to bite on what they're looking for, which I'm assuming is ultimately the very reported 2 first-round picks. I think that's something that they're looking for from basically anybody that's trying to come and get Kessler from them. And we could talk about whether or not he's worth that. I think that's an interesting topic, of course, but I think that maybe what's happening here is that they're open to trading him because I know that he's played good this year, but he's had increased opportunity. I feel like he would have played good last year if he had better opportunity. Like he wasn't starting last year. I think he was this year, if I remember correctly, like things like that. So I think that may be what it is. So I find it hard to believe that they didn't know what they had in Kessler, but I think that they feel like there may be an opportunity to get an upgrade in some way, which is why they have him on the market in the first place. And I think this is probably just an offshoot of that.
Yeah, if you are the Utah Jazz and you want to put Walker Kessler on the market, you're doing it for basically one of two reasons. You either believe that there is a disagreement in the market in the value of Walker Kessler and that the way you perceive his value is lower than what the rest of the league perceives his value to be. That would be a reason to go ahead and try to sell on Walker Kessler now. Or if you believe that this coming summer, when he's extension eligible, he's going to want a big fat extension and you do not want to be the team to give him that deal, a la the Pelicans with Brandon Ingram right now and the rest of the market. They don't want to be the team to give Brandon Ingram that next contract, and it's created issues there where they're going to try to move on from him if they can't reach a reasonable deal. So that would be another reason why, if the Jazz feel like, you know what, he's going to want an extension and we don't want to be the team to pay him because we're not big believers in him or whatever, or we just think he's going to want more money than we think he's actually worth, that would also be a reason to put him on the market, because otherwise 23-year-old big man, this is exactly what the Jazz should be hanging on to, right? This is for a young rebuilding team. This is what you need. I mean, he was one of the pieces that they got in the Rudy Gobert trade. And Donnie, I mean, I look at this is insane. When you look at the numbers that he's putting up right now, this is his defensive impact. He's lowering his opponent's field goal percentage at the rim by 15%. And in the whole painted area, in 10 feet, the whole paint basically, right, by 14%. He is making a major impact on shots at the rim with his shot blocking capability. I still, look, if I'm an opposing team, I hope the Jazz are willing to move him. And maybe they're going to want a ton in exchange. But if I'm Utah, man, I'm probably just keeping this guy unless somebody really overpays.
Yeah, that's why I said initially I don't really understand, other than the fact that maybe they feel like they could find another opportunity elsewhere and be better off for it. I don't really understand why he was on the market in the first place. The Jazz are kind of weird also. I don't really know what their ideal is in terms of what they're doing with the roster going forward.
Yeah.
They may just be in talent acquisition mode, because that may just be how they're trying to build this out. But they got, they re-signed Markkanen as well. They drafted Filipowski. They've got Kessler. They've got a lot of big guys on this roster, and they're not all going to be able to play all the same amount of minutes. So I don't really know ideally what they're doing there, but I think that Kessler could be somebody that gets squeezed, and that may be also why he was on the market. They were trying to find a spot for him so they can maybe even out this roster going forward a little bit differently. But I think that he's on track to be one of the best defensive centers in the game. He probably already is, to be honest, one of the best defensive centers in the game. And he doesn't get talked about enough for being somebody like that. I think that the tricky thing with him is that while he is like a old school type center, offensively, he's not really going to do much for you otherwise. Maybe he could develop into something. He's still pretty young, but he's not going to do much for you offensively. I think the defensive value is where he's at. And I think that you're not going to be able to get that if you're not going to go out of your way to get somebody like him specifically. You're not going to find that in a lot of places. So I think that that's, to me, very worth it. So I understand why, they would try to hold out to see if they can get 2 first-round picks, if that is what they're doing.
So Donnie, let me show you something here. So take a look at this. These are pretty good defensive numbers, right? Minus 14%. And when I'm looking at that differential column all the way on the right, minus 14% at the rim, minus 11% in the painted area, essentially less than 10 feet. You extend that out a little bit. Then you go look at this is Wemby.
I can tell it was Wemby.
Right? I mean, because he's making an impact everywhere on the floor, right? But look at the rim. Walker Kessler is making, again, that's Wemby, how much he is changing opponents shooting at the rim. This is Walker Kessler.
Man. He's not doing anything on the perimeter, but around the rim, he is. Woof.
Like, he is crushing. And I think part of it is it's just underreported because he's playing for the Jazz and they're a terrible team and all of that. But then you go look at this. Here's cleaning the glass, 96th percentile in block percentage. While this is what is absolutely insane, Donnie. 96th percentile in block percentage, while in the 83rd percentile in foul percentage. Usually those two things do not coincide. Usually you see a block percentage that's sky high and the foul percentage is terrible because they pick up fouls going for blocks. Like Day'Ron Sharpe is a guy who's in that category. Blocks a lot of shots, but picks up a lot of fouls doing so. Walker Kessler is blocking shots and not fouling. That's incredibly valuable. And that's not even talking about his rebounding. I know the offensive game needs work, but man, I mean, this is the type of thing you want to see from a defensive player, especially at the big position.
I mean, comparable numbers to Wemby. Was that what I was seeing? At least around the rim on 2-point shots. That's kind of great. That's why I said, I don't know that he's talked about enough as being one. And he's only 23, as being one of the better defensive centers. So Trev, all right, let's finish on this. Do you think that you would do a trade for Kessler with 2 first-round picks? I know that there's situations to it, and we've talked a lot about the Lakers specifically, but just more or less in general, do you think he's worth 2 firsts?
In general, do I think he's worth 2 first-round picks? Yes, I think he's worth that. I think he's worth that.
Agree.
Now, if I'm a team giving those picks, I'm trying to protect those picks to a degree, right? I'm not saying 2 totally unprotected picks, and there's always a lot of value there, but a range of values there. But I would try to at least have some pick protections on there. And honestly, if I'm a team that's trying to go for it, I'm trying to do a combo deal. I'm trying to do Walker Kessler plus let's talk Colin Sexton, Walker Kessler plus let's talk Jordan Clarkson or whoever, in order to try to up my value a little bit, the bang for your buck. It's a lot to give for a center that needs to be paid on a new contract, but if he just is an elite rim protector in the NBA, and that's what you have moving forward, now that we're kind of seeing the rebirth of the center position, I think there's a decent chance that 4 years from now, 5 years from now, we're looking back and teams are saying, oh my God, we could have got Walker Kessler back then for a couple of first or whatever it was that Utah wanted, and that he's actually worth more than that at that point.
Yeah, I think that the first thing, like people hear first and they're like, oh, no, of course not. No, absolutely not. I think it's important that if you're going to give up the first, you got to remember or you got to know that not all firsts are created equal. You can do a lot of different things with first round picks. You could do, the protections, you could do swaps, you could do a lot of different things there that maybe they even don't even convey as first round picks down the road. So, and on the topic of Lakers, because I know that that's been one of the main guys the Lakers have been going for. We talked about a lot. It's
Sure.
been reported. The Lakers also have another option there of removing protections on a previous pick from the trade that they did with Westbrook. So, like, I think that is something that if I'm Rob, I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, we can make this happen right now. We want to do a combo. You want to do straight up just, Kessler and JHS thing makes the math work. Obviously, if you're a Utah fan, you hear JHS and you're like, no, we don't want that. But the picks, you get the picks, or one pick and a protection lifted. I think that could work as well because I don't know. I don't know what you have to do, but I think you should get this guy and keep him in your system because he may be limited in terms of mobility, and you see that with the numbers. He's probably just locked into a drop scheme, but that's fine, man. You get this guy in your organization, and he's going to be a plus for you.
Yeah, you look at the numbers right now. The Jazz have not been good defensively with him on the floor. +2 points per 100 possessions. That's his on-off rating here. So that's not ideal. But again, I think the Jazz they're not a good team in general. They're not a good defense, and it's more that you put him in the right scheme, and I think that he is going to be more than fine. So everybody, I'm really curious to know your thoughts, though. If it is, let's say it's 2 real first-round picks, the money is very easy to match with Walker Kessler, tiny contract, but 2 real first-round picks for Walker Kessler, plus you've got to be willing to pay him on his next contract, and who knows exactly what he'd be wanting there. So you've got to be willing to enter into those extension talks with him this summer. Would you do it? Would you make that move to go get Walker Kessler? Let us know in the comment section down below, and go check out our latest video on the all-star situation and why so many players right now are speaking out against the changes the NBA is making in the all-star game. Go give that a look right now.